My father worked for the Commissioner of Fisheries, which has changed its name a couple times now. Now it would be Virginia Marine Resources Commission, Marine Police. He worked back in the 40s, 50s. He worked the Oyster Wars between Maryland and Virginia. They would actually, during the Oyster Wars, were at a disadvantage because they had actually bigger boats that they were in, 30, 40 footers, and had a high draft. They drew a lot of water and couldn't go in shallow water, where the oystermen had Chesapeake dead rise boats which didn't need a lot of water to go. They could go in shallow water as compared to their vessels, and they would outrun them easily by cutting across flats and different shoals of water and could get away. The Marine Police did have spotter planes, and they would call down to them and tell them to watch a boat because they had guns sitting on their deck. My father had been shot at a few times while they was doing the Oyster Wars. I always asked him the question because my mama would tell me about the time, and he would say something about it that they were shooting at him. And it was cold in the wintertime, and the guy that shot at him actually fell overboard, and my father jumped in and saved him. And as a kid, I wanted to know why he saved him if he was trying to shoot my dad.
And was there an answer?
There wasn't nobody there. None that I could understand at that age.
Right.
Because I was only like 5,
Right.
3 or 4 years old.
I mean, was this really dangerous? Was your mother ever like scared for his life, or was it less dangerous?
I wouldn't say it's as dangerous as what a policeman is. I mean, even though it's a type of police, you're not dealing with as many people in that situation. And even though they're watermen and all that, they seem to have, believe it or not, their morals are completely different from what I think of criminals.
What do you mean? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
They believe and they have values. I think more so than your common thieves and people like that they were trying to do. Most of them had respect for the police officers. And I've had them tell me, even today, that some of them that knew my father, that they respected him because he treated them all the same. If they were doing wrong, they were doing wrong. And they didn't show favoritism.
So did you know, I mean, so I think it's interesting that there were people living maybe even close to your dad that were some of these people who were violating
Most
the
of them, you
laws?
got to remember that Oyster Wars were between Virginia and Maryland.
Okay.
So you had people coming from Maryland into Virginia, people going the other way. So no, you did not necessarily know them, but they were all the same type of people.
So another question I have is, do you know if there was anybody from Middlesex County that was illegally oystering, or was it mostly people from Maryland were coming down here to do it?
No, they were both. I just couldn't tell you their names or who they were back then.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was too young.
So he did that. Do you know the years that he started, or when he stopped, or a guesstimate?
The Oyster Wars didn't last but so long. I mean, it probably might have only been a couple years, 2 or 3 years, but most people around here remember them. Mm-hmm. But like I say, I was young. I mean, maybe they started before I was born and ended 3 or 4 years later after I was born. I'm not positive on that. But my dad continued to work for the Virginia Marine Resources Commission until he retired.
Okay.
He did go into a different department about the last 20 years that he was there. Instead of being in the Marine Police Division of it, he was actually in the Oyster Replenishment Department. And he was the Oyster Replenishment Officer for the state. and had to travel all the waters in the state, and could tell them it's different now, but he would tell them where they could oyster, when they couldn't, and that type of stuff. But he wasn't a policeman that enforced it. But he gathered the data as far as catching oysters, where the shells were. Replanting shells was a big thing. And he would tell them and go out with them on the barges and tell them where to replant oyster shells and that type of stuff.